Have you ever noticed how the truth rarely arrives through the people everyone expects? Chosen one, sometimes the voice that changes everything belongs to the one person nobody was paying attention to. While others were busy repeating stories they never bothered to question, someone quietly watched from the sidelines, seeing every moment that everyone else misunderstood. They never planned to get involved. They never wanted to stand in the middle of your journey. But there comes a point when witnessing too much becomes heavier than remaining silent. That moment has finally arrived. Your soulmate never imagined that the person who would defend you wasn't a close friend, a family member, or someone trying to impress anyone. It was someone with nothing to gain and everything to lose by speaking honestly. And because they had no reason to protect you, every word they spoke carried a weight that no accusation could compete with. The universe has an unusual way of revealing truth. It doesn't always send loud signs or dramatic miracles. Sometimes it simply places the right person in the right conversation at the exact moment another soul is finally ready to listen. That is exactly what happened here. Your soulmate wasn't searching for answers that day. They weren't expecting their entire understanding of you to change. Yet one unexpected sentence stopped every thought in its tracks. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't emotional. It was calm, simple, and impossible to ignore. The person looked at them and quietly said something they had never considered before. Have you ever noticed that everything people say about them never matches the way they actually treat others? In that instant, something shifted deep inside your soulmate. It was as though years of assumptions suddenly collided with a single, undeniable observation. They began remembering moments they had completely overlooked. Times when your actions reflected kindness, while the stories surrounding you reflected something entirely different. For the first time, they weren't comparing your words to someone else's opinions. They were comparing your actions to the rumors they had accepted without question. And the two simply didn't fit together anymore. That realization created a silence they couldn't explain, because once the heart recognizes inconsistency, it becomes impossible to return to comfortable ignorance. They kept replaying that conversation long after it ended. Why had someone with no personal agenda been the first to defend you? Why had a stranger's honesty felt more genuine than years of familiar opinions? Why did your quiet consistency suddenly make more sense than every story they had believed before? The universe was gently pulling away a veil that had covered this connection for far too long. You see, chosen one, genuine character has something extraordinary about it. It leaves traces behind that even misunderstanding cannot erase forever. People may question your intentions. They may misunderstand your silence. They may create stories because they cannot explain your heart. But the truth always remains hidden inside your actions, patiently waiting for the right eyes to recognize it. That unexpected defender simply became the mirror your soulmate needed to finally see what had been standing before them all along. And what they are about to hear next from that same person won't simply challenge everything they believed about you. It will force them to question why they ever doubted your heart in the first place. The conversation stayed with your soulmate long after it had ended, but not because someone defended you. It was because of the questions that defense awakened. Chosen one, there is a profound difference between hearing a new opinion and being confronted with a truth your own heart has been quietly whispering for a long time. For the first time in what felt like forever, your soulmate stopped asking what everyone else thought about you and started asking themselves what they had actually witnessed with their own eyes. That single change shifted everything. They realized that so many of their beliefs had been borrowed from other voices, instead of built from their own experiences. The more they reflected, the more they recognized something unsettling. Every time someone described your character, they spoke with certainty. But every time they personally remembered being around you, they remembered something completely different. Those two realities could no longer exist together, and their heart knew it. Instead of rushing to defend the stories they had accepted, they became strangely quiet. Silence has a way of exposing what noise keeps hidden. Without realizing it, they began replaying ordinary moments that had never seemed important before. They remembered how you treated people when there was nothing to gain. They remembered your willingness to help without expecting recognition. They remembered how you rarely spoke negatively about anyone, even when you had every reason to. These weren't dramatic memories. They were simple, almost forgettable moments. Yet together they formed a picture that completely contradicted the version of you they had been encouraged to believe. It was as though hundreds of tiny pieces had suddenly arranged themselves into an image that had been there all along, waiting for someone to step back and truly see it. What surprised them even more was realizing that the person who unexpectedly defended you never tried to convince them of anything. There were no emotional speeches, no attempts to influence their decisions. They simply shared what they had personally observed and allowed the truth to stand on its own. That honesty carried a different kind of power. It wasn't trying to win an argument. It wasn't trying to prove anyone wrong. It simply invited your soulmate to trust what they already knew deep inside. The universe often works this way. It doesn't force awakenings through pressure. It creates moments where denial quietly becomes impossible. That conversation became one of those moments. As your soulmate reflected more deeply, another realization began taking shape. They noticed that the people who spoke most confidently against you often relied on opinions, assumptions, or second-hand stories. But the unexpected defender spoke only about what they had actually seen. That difference became impossible to ignore. One side was built on interpretation. The other was built on observation. One depended on convincing others. The other simply presented reality without decoration. Suddenly, your soulmate found themselves asking questions they had never dared to ask before. Why had they trusted repeated opinions more than consistent actions? Why had they accepted rumors without comparing them to the person they had personally known? Why had they overlooked the quiet evidence that had always been in front of them? The universe has a remarkable way of allowing truth to reveal itself through consistency. Lies often need constant explanation, but authenticity remains steady regardless of who is watching. Your soulmate is beginning to see that every interaction they genuinely shared with you carried the same quiet qualities. You never changed your character depending on the audience. You never became kind only when it was convenient. You never searched for attention through grand displays or dramatic promises. Instead, your nature remained remarkably consistent, even during difficult seasons. That consistency is now becoming the strongest evidence of all, because genuine character cannot be imitated forever. Eventually, it reveals itself through repeated actions that no false story can permanently erase. Perhaps the most unexpected part of this awakening is that your soulmate is no longer focused on who defended you. Their attention has shifted toward why those words felt so undeniably true. They are realizing that the conversation didn't create a new version of you. It simply removed the distractions that had prevented them from seeing the real one. Every memory now feels clearer. Every interaction carries new meaning. Every quiet act of kindness they once overlooked now shines with unexpected significance. And as these realizations continue unfolding, they are beginning to understand that this was never just one person's defense of your character. It was the universe gently placing undeniable evidence before their heart, allowing them to discover the truth for themselves. And what they are about to remember next will reveal that your greatest defense was never spoken by anyone else. It was written all along in the quiet consistency of the life you chose to live. Chosen one, there comes a moment when the heart stops listening to what people have been saying and starts paying attention to what it has been feeling all along. That moment has finally arrived for your soulmate. It wasn't one dramatic revelation that changed everything. It was a quiet awakening that unfolded piece by piece until they could no longer ignore what had always been hidden beneath the surface. The unexpected defense they heard didn't simply make them question the past, it made them question themselves. They began wondering why it had taken someone outside the situation to recognize qualities they themselves had overlooked. That question settled deep within their spirit, refusing to leave. For the first time, they realized they had spent so much energy searching for flaws in your behavior that they had forgotten to notice the consistency of your heart. And once that realization entered their mind, every memory began returning with a completely different meaning. They started remembering moments that had once seemed ordinary, but now felt extraordinary. They remembered the way you remained respectful even when conversations became difficult. They remembered how you never tried to win people over by speaking badly about anyone else. They remembered that whenever conflict appeared, your first instinct was not to create a bigger storm, but to prevent one. Back then, these qualities seemed almost invisible because kindness rarely demands attention. Now those same qualities stood out more clearly than ever before. They began asking themselves a difficult question. If you truly were the person others claimed you were, why did your actions consistently tell a completely different story? The more they searched for an answer, the more impossible it became to ignore the truth standing quietly before them. The universe has a fascinating way of exposing authenticity. It doesn't rely on dramatic evidence. Instead, it allows time to reveal patterns. Patterns cannot pretend forever. Words can change depending on the audience, but repeated actions become impossible to disguise. Your soulmate is finally recognizing the pattern that has followed you throughout this entire journey. Whenever someone needed encouragement, you offered it without expecting anything in return. Whenever tension filled the room, you often became the one trying to restore peace instead of adding more chaos. Whenever misunderstandings surrounded you, you resisted the temptation to fight every accusation because you believed that character would eventually speak louder than emotion. Those choices may have gone unnoticed in the moment, but together they created a truth that no false narrative could erase. As these realizations continued unfolding, your soulmate found themselves becoming increasingly uncomfortable with another discovery. They noticed that many of the strongest opinions they once held about you had very little to do with their own experiences. They had unknowingly allowed outside voices to become louder than their own observations. Instead of trusting what they personally witnessed, they trusted what they repeatedly heard. That realization was deeply humbling because it forced them to admit that familiarity does not always equal truth. Sometimes the loudest voices create the greatest distractions, while the quietest observations carry the deepest wisdom. The unexpected defender had done nothing more than remind them to trust their own eyes instead of borrowed conclusions. That simple reminder changed everything. Imagine standing before a beautiful stained glass window while someone places a dark curtain in front of it. For years, you're told that nothing colorful exists beyond that curtain. Eventually, you stop questioning it because the darkness becomes familiar. But the moment someone quietly pulls the curtain aside, the colors do not suddenly appear. They were always there. You simply couldn't see them before. Chosen one, your true character has always been like that hidden window. The compassion, honesty, patience, and quiet strength that define who you are never disappeared. They were simply hidden behind assumptions that others accepted without looking beyond the surface. Your soulmate is finally seeing those colors with their own eyes, and they cannot understand how they ever believed anything else. The more they reflect, the more gratitude begins replacing confusion. They are no longer searching for dramatic proof because they have discovered something far more powerful. The evidence was never hidden inside one extraordinary moment. It was scattered across countless ordinary ones. Every small act of integrity, every moment of quiet kindness, every decision to remain true to yourself became another thread weaving together the person you have always been. Those threads have now formed a picture too complete to ignore. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that real character is never revealed by a single grand gesture. It's revealed by the countless unseen choices someone makes when no one is expecting anything from them. Yet as this understanding settles into their heart, another realization begins to emerge, one even more surprising than the last. They are starting to wonder why certain people work so hard to make them overlook these truths in the first place. Why was your quiet consistency treated as something to question instead of something to admire? Why did honesty need defending while assumptions were accepted so easily? Those questions are leading them toward a discovery that reaches far beyond misunderstanding. They are leading them to the hidden motives that shape this entire journey, and once those motives are exposed, nothing about this connection will ever look the same again. There is another part of this story your soulmate never expected to uncover. Chosen one. It wasn't hidden inside a dramatic confrontation or an emotional confession. It revealed itself through a simple realization that grew stronger every day. They began noticing that every person who spoke about you seemed to focus on who they wanted others to believe you were, while the one who defended you focused only on who you consistently proved yourself to be. That difference changed everything. One side relied on carefully crafted impressions, while the other relied on lived experience. Suddenly, your soulmate understood that there are people who build opinions from conversations, and there are people who build them from observation. The unexpected defender belonged to the second group, and that is why their words carried a quiet authority that no argument could weaken. For the first time, your soulmate wasn't deciding who to believe. They were deciding which version of reality had always been supported by your actions. As this awareness deepened, they found themselves paying attention to something they had never noticed before. Every person leaves behind an emotional atmosphere. Some people bring confusion wherever they go. Others bring calm without even trying. Looking back, your soulmate realized that after spending time with you, they often felt more grounded, more hopeful, and strangely at peace. Yet after certain conversations with other people, they were left carrying doubt, anxiety, and questions that had never existed before. That contrast became impossible to ignore. They began asking themselves why someone who claimed to be helping always left them feeling unsettled, while the person they had been encouraged to question consistently brought quiet stability into their life. The answer wasn't immediate, but their heart had already begun discovering what their mind was still trying to understand. The universe has a remarkable way of exposing influence without exposing names. It allows people to recognize the effect someone has on their spirit before they fully understand the reason behind it. Your soulmate is now recognizing those invisible effects. They can clearly see that not every voice speaking with confidence was speaking with sincerity. Some opinions were shaped by personal fears. Some advice carried hidden insecurity. Some warnings revealed more about the person giving them than about the person they were describing. This realization has become one of the most powerful awakenings of all, because it has taught your soulmate that not every confident voice deserves unquestioned trust. Sometimes certainty is only a mask hiding deeper emotions that have nothing to do with the truth. Imagine walking through a valley surrounded by echoes. You call out once, but your own voice returns from every direction, sounding like many different people speaking at the same time. For a while, you believe those echoes are separate voices telling you what to think. But eventually, you climb high enough to see the valley below, and suddenly you understand that what sounded like countless opinions was simply one distorted sound repeating itself again and again. Chosen one, your soulmate is reaching that higher place now. They are beginning to recognize that many of the judgments they accepted were not independent truths at all. They were repeated assumptions that grew louder simply because they were never challenged. The unexpected defender didn't create a new truth. They simply interrupted the echo, allowing your soulmate to hear reality without all the noise surrounding it. With every passing day, another layer of confusion falls away. Instead of reacting emotionally to old stories, your soulmate is quietly measuring people by the consistency of their character. They are noticing who speaks with kindness when no one is watching. They are noticing who remains respectful even during disagreement. They are noticing who builds peace instead of feeding conflict. And every one of those observations keeps leading them back to you. They are beginning to understand that your greatest defense was never someone's speech on your behalf. It was the life you quietly lived when you believed nobody was paying attention. Character has a unique way of leaving evidence behind, and that evidence becomes impossible to erase once someone chooses to see it with an open heart. Now your soulmate stands at the edge of one final realization. They understand that the unexpected person who defended you was never the true turning point. They were simply the messenger chosen by the universe to open a door that had remained closed for far too long. What truly transformed everything was your soulmate's willingness to finally step through that door and see you without borrowed opinions, old assumptions, or unnecessary fear. And as they prepare to take that final step, they are about to discover something even more extraordinary, that the universe arranged this unexpected defense, not only to reveal the truth about you, but to reveal the truth about the connection itself. A truth that neither time nor misunderstanding could ever permanently hide. Chosen one. Every journey reaches a moment when truth no longer asks for permission to be believed. It simply stands in the light, impossible to ignore. That moment has finally arrived. What began as one unexpected person speaking a few honest words has become something far greater than anyone could have imagined. It was never about winning an argument or proving someone wrong. It was about restoring what had slowly been buried beneath years of assumptions, unanswered questions, and borrowed opinions. The universe never intended for your true character to remain hidden forever. It simply waited until your soulmate was ready to recognize truth without needing anyone else to interpret it for them. There is a profound difference between hearing about someone's heart and finally seeing it with your own eyes. Your soulmate has crossed that invisible line, and once someone truly sees another soul, they cannot return to the illusion they once accepted. What moves them most is not the fact that someone defended you. It is realizing that you never spent your energy trying to force anyone to defend you in the first place. Looking back, they can see countless opportunities where you could have demanded justice, corrected every false assumption, or gathered people to prove your innocence. Yet you chose another path entirely. You trusted that the life you lived would eventually become stronger than the stories others created. At the time, your silence confused many people. Now it inspires them. Your soulmate finally understands that confidence rooted in truth does not chase every misunderstanding. It continues walking its path, believing that integrity leaves evidence no deception can permanently erase. That realization has changed the way they see strength itself. Real strength is not always loud. Sometimes it is the quiet decision to remain faithful to your character, even when nobody seems willing to recognize it. The universe has always worked through unexpected moments rather than perfect circumstances. Imagine a mountain hidden behind thick clouds for many days. People begin believing the mountain has disappeared because they cannot see it anymore. But the mountain has never moved. It has never questioned its own existence simply because the sky became unclear. Then one morning, the wind quietly carries the clouds away, and everyone suddenly acts as though the mountain has appeared out of nowhere. In truth, it was there the entire time. Chosen one, your character has been like that mountain. The opinions surrounding you were only passing clouds. They changed direction with every conversation, every assumption, and every misunderstanding. But who you truly are remained unmoved beneath them all. The unexpected person who defended you did not create the truth. They simply became the first breeze that allowed your soulmate to see what had never stopped existing. As your soulmate continues reflecting on everything that has unfolded, they are beginning to understand another lesson the universe has been quietly teaching all along. A person's reputation can be influenced by many voices, but their spirit reveals itself through consistency. Every act of kindness you offered without expecting gratitude, every promise you kept even when no one was watching, Every moment you chose honesty over convenience has become a silent testimony that now speaks louder than any explanation ever could. Your soulmate is no longer searching for dramatic proof because they have discovered something much more powerful. The truth was woven into your everyday choices. It lived in the way you treated strangers, the way you remained respectful during difficult moments, and the way you protected your values, even when doing so came at a personal cost. Those quiet decisions have now become impossible to overlook. Perhaps the greatest gift in this entire experience is not that your soulmate finally understands you. It is that they have learned to trust the wisdom of their own heart again. They are no longer measuring people by repeated opinions or temporary emotions. They are measuring them by consistency, compassion, humility, and the peace they bring into the lives of others. That shift will remain with them long after this chapter ends, because it has transformed the way they see not only you, but every relationship they will ever experience. The unexpected defense was simply the beginning. The real miracle was the awakening that followed. Now the universe has completed the lesson it set into motion. The borrowed stories have faded, the unnecessary doubts have lost their strength, and the quiet truth of who you have always been is finally standing where everyone can see it. Your soulmate no longer remembers you through the voices that once surrounded them. They remember you through your own unwavering character. And that is the victory no misunderstanding can ever take away. Because when a life is built upon sincerity, patience, and genuine love, it never needs endless explanations to survive. Sooner or later, the right moment arrives, the right voice is heard, and the right heart finally awakens. From that moment forward, truth no longer needs someone to defend it, because it has already become impossible to deny. V.